The last time I made a build with the Backfire SMG, it turns out to be my most viewed build video on the channel, which is kind of crazy. Now, I'm not hoping the same thing with this build. If it happened, it'll be kind of crazy too. But as long as you guys are making my weird builds and having fun in the game, that's all it matters to me. Just let me know in the comment section whether you like the build or not, of course. Send me that feedback, I like to see that. Now, the build that I have for you guys today is, of course, the Backfire SMG build. We're not going to bleed at all. Like, we have literally crazy amount of hazard protection on the build, so we're never going to bleed at all. Plus, we have the damage. I mean, we are doing 1,000,000 crits on the body, which is also kind of crazy at the same time. Plus, we have crazy amount of regen too. Like, we are regenerating our armor, and we don't have to worry about the enemies that are doing more damage to us nowadays. We're going to survive that. I mean, is pretty solid. So if you want to know how you can achieve all of that in one build, let me show you. Now, before I talk about the build, I actually want to talk about the specialization here, because normally I would just say use gunner specialization to get that 10% armor on kill, but I would actually recommend right now to use the fireball specialization, because you get the striker shield, and with that shield you can actually do more damage. Yes, as long as you have the shield active and then you have enemies within that cone of the shield, you're actually doing more damage. Depends on how many enemies are there. Plus, you also get that armor kit, which when you apply to you, you get crazy amount of regen for 10 seconds. You basically become unkillable. Plus, you also have this where your armor is gone, the nearest enemy will actually burn. So that kind of adds a little bit of survivability for you to kind of like get back, or armor kit yourself to get yourself that regen too. So I feel like this is a bit more valuable than that just the gunner's 10% armor on kill. But if you want to use that, you can absolutely use it as well. Alright, so first of all, let's talk about the weapon itself, the Backfire SMG. And I did receive the buff here. You can see the talent did. So now you can get a 200% critical hit damage by just 100 stacks. Previously was 200 stacks. Means 1% critical hit damage by one shot fired basically on the enemy. That was pretty crazy, but now it's better. So you get 2% crit damage from just one stack, so that's good. So you can easily build up that 200% crit damage by just firing 100 bullets at your targets. Now, that's not supposed to be your goal here. What I mean by that, your goal is supposed to be to get 50 stacks. Why? Because 50 stacks can give you 100% critical hit damage. That's still quite a lot. So if you can just achieve that, which shouldn't be a problem, because you have 50 rounds on the mag anyway. So if you fire all those bullets on the enemies, you're gonna get that 100 stacks, and then you can just keep firing and keep building up the stacks. I mean, as long as you have enemies, you can build up the stacks without an issue. So yeah, that's not a big problem there. But the problem was the reload, because when you reload, you build the bleed on you, and that was pretty bad, right? That was the bad thing about the Backfire. But obviously with this build, we don't have to worry about that. We're not bleeding at all. So yeah, that's not an issue here. However, there is a trick I'm going to mention. I mean, a couple of tricks basically. If you're not, building a 100% hazard build, let's say, you just want to use the Backfire SMG, well, you can kind of bypass the bleed in a way. So the first thing you can do is just fire your weapon and reload, fire and reload, fire and reload constantly like that, bleed yourself. And then at a certain point, the game will probably gonna bug out or something, or it just forgets to bleed you, basically. That's one of the way you can stop the bleeds. And the other one is just get full stacks. As long as you have full stacks, you're not gonna bleed if you reload. I mean, it's just, I don't know if it's a feature or a bug, but I'm guessing it's a bug, but that's what it happens. So if you wanted to know that how you can just bypass the bleed, that's pretty much it. But again, with this build, we don't have to worry about that, because we're just not gonna bleed at all because of our hazard protection, that is. So yeah. Now, also, as you can see, the mods for the weapon, I mean, we have 15% of crit chance, 15% crit damage, so that's pretty good as well. So, I mean, it is SMG. It is an SMG, so you do get a lot of crit chance anyway. Plus, you get 15% crit chance on top of that. So, you can see that it's so easy to make the build, because you're getting tons of crit chance just from the SMG itself. Plus, the cool thing about Backfire is the optimal range is actually higher than other SMGs. Heck, it's even higher than Chameleon. Chameleon is 20. The Backfire is 22. I mean, this really does fire at quite a higher range, which is, I would say, is pretty good. As for the secondary weapon, you can use whatever you want. I just always put the lefty because I like it. So yeah, that's pretty much all my weapon here. Now, let's talk about the gears, and let's see what's happening here and how I can achieve that, hazard protection, the regen, and the damage all at the same time. First of all, let's talk about the mask here. So the mask that I have is the Hollow Man mask. Yes, it's the Hollow Man. It's a Yal gear piece, so you get 10% hazard protection from the one piece set bonus. As you can see, I have armor, health damage that this received a buff here, so we have 14% of health damage. Most of the time, you're probably seeing on the footage that I'm actually doing way more damage than the enemies when they're on their health bar. So because of that 14% health damage, because that's actually amplified damage. And it's actually even better for fighting like Black Tusk NPCs or enemies that are like Chungas, you know, the big guys that doesn't have an armor bar but just a flatline health, but they're tanky, you know, they have a bunch of armors on them but no armor bar, you know what I mean. So you can do more damage to those guys, and obviously Warhounds if you're fighting Black Tusk. So this is actually pretty solid. It won't show you the damage numbers when you're fighting enemies with armor on them, but it will definitely hit harder to enemies that does not have any armor. And skills, enemy skills will take more damage too because they don't have armor bar too. So that health damage is actually pretty solid. So we're basically doing like health damage close to an assault rifle without even having assault rifle as our main weapon because of this mask. I also have a hazard protection as an attribute there, and I have a crit damage mod there as well. Now, as for the holster, I chose one piece of Sheshka here because we get a crit chance, and they buffed the hazard protection from 10% to 20%. So that's actually a good thing. So 2-piece Sheshka gives you 20% of hazard protection. That's one of the ways I'm getting hazard protection on my build. Now, I have weapon damage, hazard protection, and crit damage here. Most of my stats do have hazard protection on them because, like I said, I'm using SMG as my main weapon, so I don't need that much of crit chance anyway. So that's why the hazard protection there instead of the crit chance. And another Sheshka, I have my knee pads here. You can see I have weapon damage, crit damage, and again, hazard protection there. So pretty much similar stats there. Now, for my gloves, I actually chose the Bellstone because it gives you 1% armor regen, because this is a regen build too. So that 1% armor regen will help. Plus, since you have more armor, means you'll get more regen. So yeah, that. Now, again, the stats you can see, I have armor, crit damage, and hazard protection there. Now, as for the chest piece, I do want to talk about the talent a little bit, but first, let's just tell you what chest piece I have. I have a group of chest piece that gives you crit damage there as the first piece says bonus. I have weapon damage, hazard protection, crit damage, and bleed resistance. Now, I do have 90% hazard protection on this build, but since I added that 10% bleed resistance mod here, I'm getting 100% of bleed resistance. Now, 90% is quite a lot. You shouldn't have to worry about any status effect on you at all. However, the bleed does hit me just a little bit for like a half a second or even less than half a second, to be honest, but I didn't like that, so I added that bleed resistant mod to completely get me away from bleed. Like if you're staying 90%, you'll still feel the bleed just a little bit though, just like I said, just a tiny bit, but I didn't like that, so I added that mod here. Otherwise, like shock and other status effect is not affecting me at all. The burn is a little bit just like the bleed, and same goes for the foam. Like I'm getting foamed and then immediately I'm getting out of foam. Basically, that's pretty much what's happening to me. So that 90% hazard protection is a lot, but if you feel like, you know what, you're okay with that bleed for just a half a millisecond or something, then yeah, you can just add a crit damage mod on the chest piece and you should be fine here. But I didn't like that, so I chose it. Now for the talent, now you can see I'm using Intimidate talent, right? That is because I have tons of bonus armor on this build already, so that's obviously the reason why I'm using it. However, I actually do not recommend it most of the time. I do recommend the Obliterate talent here. Why? Because it'll be active at all times, and how we can activate it just by, you know, critting. All you have to do is fire your weapon, crit on your enemies, and you're going to build up the stacks and you'll get 20% of weapon damage. With Intimidate, obviously doing more damage than Obliterate, it requires a bonus armor, and it requires you to be staying up close to your enemies within 10 meters, which honestly most of the time I don't even do that. And like I already told you that the Backfire SMG has a very high optimal range, so you shouldn't have to worry about that Obliterate talent at all. You can hit enemies with like 20 meters away from you and you'll still do the same amount of damage without have to worry about any damage drop off. But with the Intimidate, the problem is that if you lose your bonus armor, you're going to lose the damage completely, which you will lose your bonus armor because you're getting shot a lot. So if you're not stacking up tons of bonus armor on you, you're going to lose that. And if you did, then obviously you lost the damage. And now enemies are doing more damage to you, and you don't have the damage to take them down quickly enough. I mean, you're still doing great damage without Intimidate, but still with the Intimidate, we're doing 1 million crits on the body. So you're just gonna reduce your damage by half, or, you know, at least 40% for sure. So that's gonna hurt a little bit. And that's why I chose Obliterate most of the time. But if you can keep that bonus armor up, absolutely use the Intimidate. It's more damage. But don't just, you know, use it because it's more damage. Try for yourself and see if you can keep the bonus armor on you most of the time or not. Because if you can't, then there's no reason for you to use Intimidate. Just go with Obliterate and you should be fine. Now, as for the backpack, obviously I'm using the Memento backpack, which not just gives you like weapon damage, it also gives you bonus armor, which helps you activate your Intimidate talent on the chest piece if you're using that. To get that extra damage, obviously. And also, you know, it gives you the regen. The regen is actually really good with this build. Like, we have 65,000 regen per second, which is pretty good. Now, you can increase that regen because remember what I say, like, when you have more armor, you get more regen. So you can change one of the weapon damage, like tier, like core, and you can change it to like armor core, and then you will have like 1.6 1.7 million armor, and you're getting over like 75 76 or even 80k armor regen per second on your build, which is honestly really solid armor regen there. And yeah, I mean, that's the source of your survivability on this build. So if you want more, you can do that. I mean, the damage is really high anyway. Like you're critting for 1 million on the body. So if you just want to reduce that damage by a little bit to give yourself even more regen, you could absolutely do that, because it's pretty much a solo build. So I mean, why would you want even more damage? Because if you can survive anything, you can kill anything, right? So yeah, do that first. But if you want to use a high-end backpack, you can do that. Like something like a high-end backpack with, let's say, Bloodsucker talent. So you get bonus armor for your Intimidate talent on the chest piece if you're using that. And you can also add a Hazard Protection attribute on your high-end backpack. And that way you get 100% hazard protection. Yes, because the only place that I don't have any sort of hazard protection is the backpack, right? Because that's Memento. We can't add hazard protection there. But with the high-end backpack, you can add 10% hazard protection, and now you have 100% hazard protection, if that matters to you, that is. But I wouldn't recommend it. I would say just stay with Memento, because it's just hard to beat. It just gives you so much stuff, not just damage, regen, and bonus armor, like I said already. So yeah, Memento is just too strong for a solo player, so absolutely use that. So that's pretty much the build. Now, if I show you my stats here, you can see I have very high crit chance here. I actually was capping my crit chance, so I reduced it by a little bit. Like I took one crit chance mod, 6%, and then added a crit damage mod. So I'm happy with that 54% crit chance. And obviously the crit damage is 145. You can actually like take the crit damage and put it back to crit chance and make it 60% if you want to, because we are going to get tons of crit damage anyway from the weapon. I mean, that's 200. So if you add it on this, you'll see we're going to get 345% of crit damage if we add that 200% on this. Now, if I show you my defensive stats here, you can see that I have 90% hazard protection, like I already mentioned, and then I have 100% bleed resistance because of that 10% bleed resistance mod there. So if you want to remove that, you can do it, add more crit damage to your build, but you will feel that bleed just a little bit, just a tiny bit. I mean, if it doesn't bother you, you can do that. It's totally up to you. It was bothering me. I mean, I was getting annoyed, so I added that bleed resistance there. But if it's fine with you, you can just, you can take it off. It's okay. So yeah, that's pretty much the build. I mean, you can just give it a try by yourself. You have the pieces already. It's pretty tanky, gives you that regen. You have that damage, of course, with the backfire, and then you're not bleeding at all, obviously. So, I mean, I would say it's a pretty solid build in this game where now the enemies are doing more damage. I'm actually feeling pretty tanky here with this build, with that armor regen coming up on me. And, I mean, you have the specialization armor kit as well. If you want more regen like crazy for 10 seconds, you can do that. Overall, it's a pretty solid build. Give it a try. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. If you like the video, leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Till then, peace.